Okay, if everyone could take their seats, and we're a little behind schedule, but not too bad so far. And we will get started here. I have a few announcements to make. If you're listening, we welcome you to the Book Festival, and we want to remind you that it's a free event for one and all, but we do welcome contributions because we have to be able to pay for all this wonderful stuff. And you get a tote bag if you donate $20, so that's a good thing. I'm going to introduce the presenter and the author, and they will do their thing for a bit, and then we will have a few minutes for questions, and then he will head over to the tent to sign books. So I'm going to introduce Jeremy Hobson, who is the co-host of NPR's Here and Now, and he will be introducing the author and telling you a little bit more about him. Where did my thing go? And our author is Scott Simon, who wrote the book My Cubs. And I know there are Red Sox fans here, but that's okay. It's a different league, and we're good to go. So.
And there's a relationship.
There's a relationship. So.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Go ahead, on up.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Hobson. I'm here representing WBUR, which is really proud to be a sponsor of this. And I am thrilled to introduce today somebody that I first met just shy of 18 years ago when I was a 17-year-old intern at NPR's All Things Considered. And I quickly realized that Scott was from Illinois. I don't know how I figured that out. It could have been all the Cubs memorabilia all over his office. And Scott and I'm being serious about this.
Excuse me, I have been living in fear of this introduction for weeks. I want you to know.
Used to sing The Way You Look Tonight in the halls of NPR.
To each other.
We also used to talk in Regis Philbin's voice. This was in the days of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? We found a lot of ways to entertain ourselves before Scott got his 1 million Twitter followers. But before and after those followers, he has been the incredible host of Weekend Edition Saturday, which is truly one of the reasons we love Saturday mornings. And all along, he has been, as you can see, one of the biggest Cubs fans of all time. He has thrown out the pitch at Wrigley Field 3 times, right? In the last few years.
Yeah, this is. I'm wearing the last one I got a few weeks ago, which has the World Series patch.
There you go.
You know what that looks like in Boston. So.
I still have on my bookshelf at home a signed copy of his book Home and Away. He has written about the Cubs now many times, but today he's going to talk about his latest book, My Cubs. Welcome, Scott Simon. See, that wasn't so bad, was it, Scott?
That wasn't so bad. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. First thing I want to say is I know I look like a doofus. But where the hell else am I going to wear this? And also, a couple years ago, I bought a pair of pants in Nantucket red. And I would put them on, and I would come to the office, and people would say, "Oh, when did the circus come to town?" And I was on the phone with my wife a few days ago, who unfortunately family couldn't join me here, and she said, "Darling," my wife is from France, and she said, "Darling, at least now going to Martha's Vineyard, you will have a place to wear those ridiculous clown pants." And I'm on the plane getting ready to come here, and I realize nobody else is wearing these damn red pants. And subsequently has been explained to me that's Nantucket, this is Martha's Vineyard, right? Is anybody else wearing clown pants? No, okay, my point exactly. But it's all I had in my, so I'm sorry about that. Is this all right though? Okay, all right, I might keep this on for a while. Let me just, my so-called presentation will be substantially changed by the fact that there was news this past week. involving the Cubs, and Stephen Bartman, as some of you know. Let me just explain a lot of the, as Jeremy notes, of course I am a, oh my word.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Better?
Yeah. I'm a longtime Cubs fan, but I also have a couple of personal family relationships to the Cubs. My Uncle Jack Brickhouse was the longtime Chicago. Maybe I should sit down. Is that all right? We're getting wind here. Is that okay? We're getting wind here, and I'm about to provide more of it. My Uncle Jack Brickhouse, was the longtime Chicago Cubs announcer, who some of you may know is famed for the phrase, "That's it, back, hey, hey!" His home run call, all the way out on Waveland Avenue. And a number of years ago, I was told by a woman in New York that she could tell if a man was from Chicago, if at their moment of highest romantic fruition, come on, I'm trying to have some dignity here, okay? At their moment of highest romantic fruition, they said, "Hey, hey!" And I told this to Uncle Jack, and he thought it was the greatest ratification of his life's work that he could ever have. And in any event, so my Uncle Jack and my Aunt Marion was married to Charlie Grimm. So I got to call him my Uncle Charlie. Charlie Grimm was the Chicago Cubs first baseman. He was actually the manager in 1945 to 1948. Very renowned as also a left-handed banjo player, which is actually how I met my Auntie Marion, who was, some of you may know, a lounge singer. And Uncle Charlie is probably best known for being at the center of that Norman Rockwell painting, The Dugout, which appeared in 1948. He is the manager, looking sheepish and chagrined. And Uncle Charlie hated that picture because he thought it made him look like a basset hound. But it does a little, and we like basset hounds. But still, he was very, very, very handsome man and had a great deal of elegance. He was the first man I knew who would get. You knew because he had these enormous hands as a first baseman, and people would always look at his hands. So he always got manicures. And I was the first man as a kid I knew who actually got manicures, and made a big impression on me. And in any event, Uncle Charlie was a wonderful guy, and of course an important part of Chicago Cubs history. And when he died, my Auntie Marion, at that point the Wrigley family had sold the Cubs and it was owned by the Chicago Tribune. My Auntie Marion went to the Tribune and said, Mr. Wrigley had always promised Charlie that when he died, his ashes would be scattered along the first base line at Wrigley Field. Now, the Cubs, if the Cubs had to comply with every request, the field would be awash in ashes. And as it was explained to me at one point by Cubs management, that, they're also, players don't want to play on a field that's awash in cremated human remains. They're just a little finicky about that sort of thing. So as a rule, they don't do it, but Auntie Marion threatened to go public with it. And in any event, one day I got a call, and it was when the Cubs, it was in March, so they were in spring training in Arizona, and we got a call, and we went down to Wrigley Field, and Auntie Marion got to spread Uncle Charlie's ashes along the first base line at Wrigley Field. And one of the most wonderful, if I might put it that way, moments of my life is when Auntie Marion, the old lounge singer, spread the ashes and sang, "I'll be seeing you," and all. Oh, it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And she came back to the seats along the first base line where the family was, and she said, "Well, how about that, sports fans?" And so I have a lot of personal relationships with the Cubs. So Stephen Bartman, but I'm going to read a section of the book, and I'm actually going to begin a little early to explain the Stephen Bartman case, but I think in Boston I probably don't need to mention the name Bill Buckner, right? These two stories fit together. All right, so let me read, and I'll pick and choose along here. Forgive me. Let me just. Sorry. For decades, the only other team that could compare to the Cubs for futility was the Boston Red Sox. who had won their last series in 1918. But when Bill Buckner, the Cubs' able first baseman, was traded to the Red Sox, he arrived just in time to be on the 1986 team that faced the New York Mets in the World Series. The Red Sox were an out from winning the World Series when Mookie Wilson of the Mets hit what announcer Vin Scully called a little roller along first. Not the reaction I was expecting. Mets fan, I gather, yeah. Buckner got his glove down on the ground to make the out, but the little roller skipped through his legs, a run scored, and the Red Sox lost all. Buckner, who has rerun that play in his mind at least as much as any inconsolable Red Sox fan, figured out over the years that his old glove just flopped closed too soon. But when analysts went over the video and photos of Bill Buckner's gaffe, they saw something else. Buckner wore an old blue Cubs batting glove under his mitt. If the glove fits, the curse transmits. So let me go. The Chicago Cubs were just 5 outs from going to the World Series in 2003 when Luis Castillo of the Florida Marlins sliced a short fly down the left field line. It looked like a routine foul, and the Cubs seemed to be on cruise control. They were ahead 3-0, 3-2, in the 8th inning of Game 6 of the National League Championship Series. I'm getting excited. Mark Pryor, Kerry Wood's slightly junior partner in the dreamy mound duo Chicago sports writers called Chicago Heat, was working on a 2-hit game. The foul ball began to fall from the sky over the sloping brick wall that runs along the third base line. Moises Alou, the Cubs left fielder, leapt up and opened his glove to catch the ball just as it arrived in aisle 4, row 8, over seat 13. A 26-year-old man in glasses, a Cubs cap, and a black Renegade sweatshirt for the youth baseball team he coached also tried to catch the ball. That man's name is now as famous as if he'd been in a Kipling poem. So I have kind of rewritten the Kipling poem, and for some reason, every time I read it, I acquire an accent. So forgive me, okay? You may talk of hot dogs and beer when the score of the game is drear, and you're wondering why the Cubs cannot win the series. But of all the Cubby fans we knew, the name that brings most ballyhoo is the guy who became a GOAT, Stephen Bartman. It's still Bartman, Bartman, Bartman. That's Goofus in the headphones, Stephen Bartman. The foul ball bounced around the seats. Moises Alou slammed his mitt against his thigh. Mark Pryor pointed out the man under the headphones to the umpires to complain of fan interference. That video of the episode, it really wasn't a play, has been replayed frame by frame, and this is a tasteless analogy, I know, but true, almost as much as the Zapruder film. My wife and I were watching at a bar. I tried to look unshaken. These things happen, I announced, while screaming inside like a lost little boy. We're ahead, we'll be fine. Or whatever Rommel said just before the invasion of Normandy. I'll skip over a little. The Florida Marlins would go on to score 8 runs in the inning and win the game 8-3. The Cubs got out, didn't go to the World Series. Another poem from Allen Ginsberg. I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by the madness of being a Cubs fan. Starving for victory, hysterical, naked in Cold Lake winds, dragging ourselves through north side streets at dawn, looking for the fix of one lousy run. Angel-headed losers burning for the ancient ivied connection to the starry dynamo phenom that only the Yankees ever seem to sign. As I go on in the book, I think I said this on, I know I said this on the air yesterday. It's a shame that it's called the Stephen Bartman incident because, of course, I think it's actually the ugly fan incident. What Stephen Bartman had, it was dreadful. There are people who began to chant, asshole, asshole. And, I mean, it's a baseball game, but still, he was a Cubs fan. And they threw beer, they threw flattened up cups of popcorn. The police had to take him away. And I remember that night, I think I might have conveniently left this out of the book, but I remember watching that night when they showed this police escorting him out of Wrigley Field, and I said, well, darling, this is good. The police behaved correctly. They knew to protect him. They'll bring him home. They'll make certain he's safely home, and then they'll beat the shit out of him. and I am not proud of that reaction. And Governor Blagojevich said I would never. He said I would never pardon that guy. Well, who needs the pardon now? What happened to Stephen Bartman was terrible, and as I explain in the book, I am reluctant as a sports fan to think we have anything to do with the outcome on the field, but I think what happened that night affected what happened on the field. I think if Moises Alou had not slammed down his glove, and he's a great fielder. He has never blamed Stephen Barton, but he slammed down his glove in anger. I think if Dusty Baker, the manager, had come out and tried to settle the team, it was not Stephen Bartman's fault under any stretch of the imagination. I think the fan reaction set off a sensation among Cub players. Oh my God, maybe there really is a curse. And I think it was we fans who lost the game and lost the chance to be in the World Series for the Cubs. Now, over the years, Stephen Bartman has refused all entreaties to make commercials, to make appearances, to write books, to in any way cash in on his notoriety. And I admire him for that. I don't know how many times over the years I've tried to interview him. I've tried to make some kind of approach to him, including for this book. Well, as it was announced this week, the Chicago Cubs gave him a World Series ring. And it has because the Cubs did not win a World Series for 108 years, so this ring has 108 diamonds. Any other team gave their players and other favored people a ring with 108 diamonds, I would say, oh, how gaudy. But because it's the Cubs, I think it's very tasteful. And it's the same ring as I think I said on the air. That's no damn NPR tote bag. And they gave him the World Series ring to signify, look, you're a fan. Thank you. I think they kind of settled on him to be an every fan to give him a World Series ring. And he issued the most wonderful statement. He still hasn't come out before the public, but he issued the most wonderful statement where he said, I don't deserve this, but I'm proud to be a part of Cubs history in my own way. And I certainly accept this ring with love and affection and gratitude and thanks to the team and the Ricketts family and Theo Epstein, but I hope it'll also be a reminder that we treat each other with consideration. And I've got to tell you, I've never been prouder of being a Cubs fan. That makes me as proud, in a way, even prouder than winning the World Series. Because I think, and people who are Red Sox fans will understand this, people have asked, well, now that the Cubs have won the World Series, what are you going to do for an identity? Because there was always this lovable loser identity. I mean, when I was growing up in Chicago, both at my grammar school and my high school, in April and May and then September, the Cubs didn't play until October in those days. When the windows were open in our school, we could hear the occasional home run from Wrigley Field. We could hear the cheers. When I was taking the L train home, and it would stop at Addison Street because we'd get out of school at about 3:15. The Cubs play day games, and typically the game would just be ending there, and you could look up, and still you can on Wrigley Field, and see the W or the L for win or lose. There was a relationship on the north side of Chicago between the team and the fans that I think you can observe elsewhere in this country, only in Boston, and the relationship between Fenway Park and the fans in Boston. And what's interesting to me is you have all these new baseball stadiums that are being built that try and imitate Wrigley Field and try and imitate Fenway Park. They'll put up a big wall somewhere, or they'll put ivy, and they'll try and look old style and retro. The one thing they don't do is put it in an actual neighborhood, and that's what makes the difference. Those two teams and those two clubs are part of actual neighborhoods, and I think it really makes for an extraordinary relationship and a closeness between the club and between the fans. And as I say in the book, and I hope Boston Red Sox fans will understand it, certainly over the years there have been better teams to root for. But I think no better place to be a baseball fan than in Boston or the north side of Chicago. and people would sometimes say to me over the years, you know, long-suffering Cub fans, and I guess I would go along with the premise, but the point is, you know, we never suffered. I mean, there were occasional moments of frustration after the ugly fan incident that involved Stephen Bartman, my wife, for the first time in our marriage. My wife and I were married in 2000. This was 2003. She heard me sobbing behind the bathroom door. She said, "Oh my God, what have I done?" My wife is French. "I have married a man who cries over a baseball game." And she opened the door and I was crying. And I said, "I thought we really had a chance this year." But the fact is we had and have and continue to have a wonderful time as Cubs fans. And so the book is about being a Cubs fan, but it's also, I think, the relationship between a club and a fan. And I just have felt privileged to be a part of it. And I was particularly proud to be a Cubs fan this week, because I think when they gave that ring to Stephen Bartman, it said, you know, we're not just another baseball club. This is not just a business. This is a relationship we have going here. And in any event, I was very proud and very heartened. If you had any questions, I'd be pleased to take them. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah. Yeah. I did a book, it's been about 10 years ago now, on Jackie Robinson. And it was part of a Turning Points in History. It was his integration of the major leagues. And people asked, why did you choose a Cubs fan? And the publisher said, because only a Cubs fan can understand the relationship between the Dodgers and Brooklyn, which I think is probably true. And I work cheaply.
Question, here we go.
Yes. I can't see where. Oh my God! Now I can see you, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
I too cried in 2003. And my wife was very concerned.
Yeah.
One of the things I loved in the book was your take of your relationship with Jack Brickhouse, Charlie Griff. You really captured a bygone era of baseball, where the writers and the
Yeah.
reporters and the managers, and I'd never heard of the Pink Poodle.
Oh, the Pink Poodle was the lounge in Wrigley Field, where Uncle Jack's office, if you please. Yeah. Thank you. You know, I don't. Yeah, some of that, and of course, it's not coming back because it's all become corporatized now. But it used to be every team would have an announcer, and there was a great sense of identification between the announcer and the club, and it was all part of the relationship. And you know, some of that is disappearing because the club will change announcers now the way that, for that matter, players on the team change teams every 3 or 4 years, with the exception of, you know, some major stars. So we're just in a different era right now. But thank you. Uncle Jack was a great guy, and Uncle Charlie was too. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
How do you react to people who say that baseball needs to be fixed, that there's something wrong, that needs to be enhanced for the younger kids when they
Yeah.
let the day games go on, young kids can watch them, in a more reasonable time.
Yeah.
String Fox out all day in the playoffs, like who's going to be able to watch that?
No. You know, I mean, I think there's some fine tuning that can be made, and they now play more night games than ever before at Wrigley Field because the television revenues are obviously much greater during prime time, and I understand that the revenues they get is why Anthony Rizzo's at first base. I mean, there's a relationship between the two, and I know when we go to a game at Wrigley Field, I mean, we don't go to school. Our children do not go to school the next day. Let me put it that way. Because the game sometimes till midnight. I before the book came out, right as the book was coming out, hardly coincidentally, I did an op-ed piece for the Wall Street Journal talking about a game I went to, because I was trying to make the case that baseball can have the same narrative quality as literature. And I'd actually thrown out the game at Wrigley Field that night, and they were behind for most of the game, and it came down to the 12th inning. The 12th inning, against the Mariners, and a name familiar here, John Lester. In fact, I wear his number, 34, very proudly. John Lester a pitcher, came up to pinch hit and laid down a bunt and scored the game, and scored the run that won the game. There's a narrative force in baseball that I think is matched in no other sport. And I think you can fine-tune with this and that in the game, but I wouldn't want that to suffer. I mean, are there too many commercials during, particularly, I think, the playoffs and World Series? Yes. But again, that's why Chris Bryant is at third base, because of all the commercial revenue they get, and that's why they get these ridiculous 108, diamond rings, and because of the revenue that they project. But I wouldn't, some people propose, let's make it a 7-inning game, or let's go to 2 outs, or something like that. I wouldn't want that at all. I think, pardon me? Visits to the mound, could I get, maybe they could, this day and age, I guess they can send text messages to the pitcher, right? That wasn't a good pitch, settle down. That's just occurring to me, they could do that, yeah. I'm sorry, yes, sir. Well, John Lester is my favorite Cub player at the moment. He just got a home run, God bless him. I think I like Rizzo. I like Chris Bryant at third. I like Javi Baez at second. But Ernie Banks, number 14, Ernie Banks. And I'd interviewed him a number of times over the years. And the morning that my mother's ashes were being interred, I got a haircut. Because she had it drilled into me, if you have an important day, get a haircut. So I was having a haircut, and who was sitting in the seat across from me but Ernie Banks, having his head shaved. And that didn't take long, but he stayed for half an hour talking baseball to people. And people would, go by the window, "Oh, Ernie Banks." He'd say, "Hello, how are you? Very nice to see you." Ernie Banks was sunny, luminous, a great ball player. You can forget how great a ball player he was, but he was such an extraordinary spirit, particularly during the years that the Cubs were the worst team in baseball. And I loved Ernie Banks. I grew up trying to imitate the way he hit, and I could roll the fingers along the edge of the bat, but I obviously couldn't hit like Ernie Banks. So, and it was the first time, so I was so excited about seeing Ernie Banks on that. I didn't disturb him. I figured, And it was the first time that I reached for my phone to call my mother to tell her who I'd run into at the bar. Yes, right. So Ernie and Fergie Jenkins. I grew up trying to imitate the way Fergie Jenkins pitched. Are we about to run out of time?
We have one more question.
Okay.
One more question.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Has there been any plans for them to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Sox Cubs World Series appearance?
I know of none. No, I mean I can. It would be a good way to observe it this year. Would be to have a World Series between the Red Sox and the Cubs. Which is, by the way, those are beautiful shorts, man. They are really. That, and yours too. That color is so flattering. It really is, yeah. They are really my two favorite franchises in baseball, and I just don't say that to pander. And it would be wonderful if there could finally be a World Series again between the two of them. It would be great, yeah.
So we want to thank Scott. I could tell by the smiles in the crowd that no longer suffering Red Sox fans were tasting the affinity between what you had to say and what we've been feeling most of our lives. My father didn't live from the moment he was born till the moment he died. He never saw a Red Sox win. And there are a lot of people like that with family members. So thank you so much. It was wonderful for baseball fans and everybody else. Thank you so much. Yeah. Nice job.
Follow the red
Yes,
shorts
follow
now?
her. Yes. Scott will be signing books. Our next author will be coming in promptly because we're a little bit behind schedule,